Welcome to the show. And today we have Dr. Debi Silber. She is the founder of PBT, Post Behavioral Transformation Institute, and is a holistic psychologist, a health, a mindset, and personal development expert, the author of Trust Again, and is a two-time #1 best-selling author of The Unshakable Woman: From Hardened to Healed, the effortless pain to release resistance, get unstuck, and create a life you love. So, before we begin, could you tell us a little bit about your background and what it is you do and what inspired you to specialize in the psychology of betrayal?
Sure. Well, that's an old bio because we've had a couple of books since then. But in either case, you don't study something like betrayal because you like the topic. You study it because you need to. I'm in business 33 plus years, health, mindset, personal development. And then I had a painful betrayal from my family. I thought I did everything I needed to do to heal from that. And then it happened a few years later. This time it was my husband. That was the deal breaker. So I got him out of the house. Looked at the two experiences thinking, okay, what's similar to these two, me, but what else? And I realized I never took my own needs seriously. Boundaries were always getting crossed. And so I'm one of those people that believes if nothing changes, nothing changes. So here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business. And there wasn't a book, there wasn't a program, there wasn't a process. So I enrolled in a PhD program. And my intention in transpersonal psychology, psychology of transformation and human potential, I just wanted to heal. And while I was there, I did a study. I studied betrayal. What holds us back? What helps us heal? And what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive? That study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my family, my work, my life.
How would you define betrayal exactly? Is it because it could be just a little white lie here and there? Like, what is real betrayal?
I define it as the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule, and every relationship has them. And the way it works is the more we trust and the more we depend on someone, the deeper the betrayal. So, for example, a child who's totally dependent on their parent and that parent does something awful, that's going to have a different level of impact than, let's say, your best friend sharing your secret. So, still betrayals, different level of cleanup left in the wake.
Tell us about why betrayal hurts, what does it impact, and what does it create with us?
It hurts because this was the person or these were the people who gave us a sense of safety and security. So when this is the person or these are the people to shatter that very sense of safety and security, it's traumatizing. When the people you trust the most prove untrustworthy, who do you trust? When the ones you run to when other people are causing harm, when they're the ones causing the harm, where do you go?
What are some physical symptoms of betrayal? Anything like emotional, mental symptoms that people common exhibit?
Yeah. Well, that was actually the second discovery. I'm happy to get into the discoveries if you want to hear about them. Okay. So the first discovery was that, I had a feeling betrayal was a different type of trauma. I'd been through death of a loved one. I'd been through disease. And I was like, betrayal feels different for me. I didn't want to assume it was the same for all my study participants. So I asked them, if you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? And they said, oh my gosh, so different. And here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the entire self gets shattered. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust, they're shattered. Like, for example, if you lose someone you love, you grieve, you're sad, you mourn the loss, life will never be the same. But you don't necessarily question your ability to trust. You don't question the relationship. You don't question your sanity. With betrayal, you do. So that it's a different type of trauma that needs a different way to heal. That was the first discovery. So, originally I was studying something called post-traumatic growth, which is kind of like the upside of trauma, how any trauma leaves you with a new awareness, perspective, insight that you didn't have beforehand. But I was like, okay, the opportunity is post-traumatic growth, but you also have to rebuild the self. So I coined a new term, post-betrayal transformation. So that was discovery number 1. Any questions on that one, or you want me to go to number 2?
No, give me a little bit about post betrayal, that what you just said. Tell us
Okay.
a little bit about that.
Yeah. So post-betrayal transformation, it's like, yes, you're rebuilding your life, but you're also rebuilding the self. You're rebuilding all of the aspects of the self that were shattered, that rejection, that abandonment, that sense of belonging, that sense of worthiness, confidence, trust. You have to rebuild well, you don't have to, and many people don't, but the invitation is to rebuild all of that. And when you do, you're in a state called post-betrayal transformation.
Okay, and tell us about the second one.
Sure. So the second, that was really exciting too. What was discovered was there's actually a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. It's now known as post-betrayal syndrome. We've had over 95,000 people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. A few things about that. We've all heard that time heals all wounds. I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true. You can't count on time. You can't even count on a new relationship to heal it until and unless you deliberately and intentionally heal it. It will follow you around in your work, in your health, in your relationships, which I can share after. And it will follow you around until you do something about it. So people hope time will heal it. People hope a new relationship will heal it, but that's not the way healing from betrayal actually works. And every few months, I pull the stats from the quiz to see where people, are. I'm happy to share them if you want to hear them.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So now imagine we have men, women, just about every country's represented. As I read these stats, as you pay attention to the symptoms, pay attention to the numbers too, because you're gonna find something pretty interesting. 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant, which is exhausting. 94% deal with painful triggers. If you've ever had a trigger, you know how painful they are. These are the most common physical symptoms. 71% have low energy. 68% have sleep issues. 63% have extreme fatigue. So you sleep all night, you wake up, you're exhausted, your adrenals have tanked. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, you can't even hold food down. Later on, you're emotionally eating, using food for comfort. 45% have a digestive issue. That could be anything: Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea, you name it. The most common mental symptoms: 78% are overwhelmed. 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief. 64% are in shock. 62% can't concentrate. So let's just stop there. You can't concentrate. You have a gut issue. You're exhausted. You still have to work. You still have to take care of your kids. You still have to go through your day. That's not even emotionally. So emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are really angry. And you're going to be bouncing back and forth between those two all day long. 80% are anxious. 79% are stressed. Just a few more. Here's why I wrote the book, Trust Again. 84% have an inability to trust. That would just kill me. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. They put the big wall up. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how. And just to wrap that up, here's what's even crazier. Well, you didn't hear me say anything 20%, 30%. These numbers are super high. They're also not necessarily from a recent betrayal. This could be from the parent who did something awful when you were a kid. This could be from the girlfriend or boyfriend who broke your heart in high school. So think about this. That person may not know, care, remember. They may not even be alive. And here we are decades later with these physical, mental, and emotional symptoms because of that experience when it's unhealed. The good news is you can heal from all of it. And that was the third discovery.
Okay, tell us.
All right. So for me, the third discovery was the most exciting. And what was discovered was, while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many people do, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean those symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome that I just shared, to this completely rebuilt place of post-betrayal transformation, we're going to move through 5 proven, predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is We now know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at each stage. And we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable. Happy to share the stages if you want to hear them.
Yes, please.
Okay, so they're all mapped out in trusts again. It's all we do within the PBT Institute. It's what all of our coaches are all certified in. So here's a boiled down version. So stage one, before it happens. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everybody, me too, was a heavy lean on the physical and the mental, thinking and doing. We're so good at that, right? And neglecting or ignoring the emotional and spiritual, feeling and being. Well, if a table only has 2 legs, it's easy for that table to topple over. That's us. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day. This is the scariest of all of the stages. And this is the day you got that news that forever changes your life. And this is the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. So right here, you've ignited the stress response. You're now headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot wrap your mind around what you just learned. This makes no sense, or what just happened. And your worldview has just been shattered. Your worldview is your mental model. It's the rules that govern you that prevent chaos. You can trust this person. These are the rules. Don't go here, right? And that's how we live it. It governs us. It prevents chaos. And in one earth-shattering moment or series of moments, every rule you've been holding to be real and true is no longer. The bottom has bottomed out on us, and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. This is terrifying, right? But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You would grab hold of anything or anyone in order to stay safe, right? And stay alive. That's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of the way. How do I survive this experience? Where do I go? Who can I trust? Here's the trap though. Stage 3, by far, is the most common place most people get stuck. And here's why. Once you've figured out how to survive your experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where you just came from, you think it's good. So we're like, okay, I got this, right? And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5. Transformation doesn't even start until stage 4. But because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we make the best here. We feel like, okay, we'll need to set up camp here. And we're not supposed to, but we don't know that. And then 4 things happen. The first thing is you start getting all those small self benefits, the secondary gain. You get your story. We love our story. We get to be right. We get someone to blame. We get sympathy from everyone we tell our story to. And on some level, we're suffering. So that feels okay, right? So we stay there. And we're not supposed to again, but we don't know. And now, because we're here longer than we should be, now the mind starts doing things like, well, maybe you're not that great. Maybe you deserved it. Maybe this, maybe that. So we plant deeper roots. Now that these are the thoughts we're thinking, this is the energy we start putting out. And like energy attracts like energy. So now we start attracting people and circumstances and relationships to confirm, yeah, this is where you belong. Like, here's where we're going to join that lame support group where everybody's like complaining and commiserating, and you will actually sabotage your healing because you don't want to outgrow your people. Here's where you're healing, and you will actually sabotage your healing because you're afraid to outgrow your betrayer. So we're in this really negative space. It gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but we don't know there's anywhere else to go. We're like, I have to get through my day. Like, how do I do this? Right here, we start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, whatever, just to get through our day. So think about it. We do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit. A year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And I can see someone 30 years later and say, that emotional eating you're doing, that numbing in front of the TV, that drinking, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they would look at me like I'm crazy. And they would say, it happened 30 years ago. All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Like I've seen this everywhere. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. And so what they wind up doing is medicating and suppressing the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. They're not happy with their health, their work, their relationships, and all they're doing is managing, right? And that's where most people stay. That's why I wrote From Hardened to Healed, uh, because it's just for stage 3. Like the worst of it happened already. Why in the world are you stopping there? Anyway, if you're willing, willingness is a big word, word right here. If you're willing to let go of the story, right, grieve, mourn the loss, a bunch of things you need to do, you move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. Right there in that decision, you're starting to turn down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but you just stopped the massive damage you were doing in stages 2 and stage 3. Stage 4 feels like if you've ever moved. If you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, apartment, whatever, like all your stuff's not there, it's not cozy yet, but you're like, yeah, we got this, we can do this. It kind of feels like that, like this sort of hopeful excitement. But think about it. If you were to move, you don't take everything with you. You don't take the things that you've outgrown that don't represent the version of you you're ready to be in this new space. And what I found was if your friends weren't there for you, you're done. The betrayer, oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. The betrayer who won't change, you're done. The lame support group, you're done. And people say to me all the time, like, what the heck? I've had these friends 10, 20, 30 years. Is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, they don't come along. So stage 4, you see a change in the people you want to spend your time with because you are intentionally and deliberately starting to create this new life. Anyway, when you've settled into this new space, you've made it sort of mentally home, you move into the 5th, most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. Self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. You didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now you do. The mind is healing. You're making all kinds of new rules, new boundaries based on the road you just traveled. And you have a new worldview based on everything you see so clearly now. And the 4 legs of the table, in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
Okay, so I have some questions.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to, I'm thinking for betrayal, to make it easy. I know like there's childhood betrayal from your parents and everything. Let's just say like a relationship betrayal, cheating, because that's just the easiest one. And I know everybody's experienced it at some point, especially nowadays. So let's say that's what's going on.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So if that happens,
Mm-hmm.
what would a healed person look like? Will they not like be checking phones ever? Will they not
Yeah.
have any anxiety? Will they just be like, if it happens, it happens, I don't care? Or will they, which is sounds kind of avoidant, or will
Mm-hmm.
they be like, super protective to make sure, and because that sounds like hypervigilant. So like, what does
Mm-hmm.
healed look like after that?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've had so many people within the PBT Institute who move through the stages. And first of all, just to close the loop on my story, healing is always a choice and rebuilding is always a choice, whether you rebuild yourself and move along. That's what I did with my family. It wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing and you want to, you rebuild something from the ground up new with the person who hurt you. So not long ago was 2 totally transformed people. My husband and I married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids as our bridal party. Never in a billion years would I have done that if I wasn't totally different, and for sure if he wasn't completely transformed. So to answer your question, and we have our coaches within the PBT Institute and outside of the PBT Institute who have completely, and members who have completely healed, and some have rebuilt, some have rebuilt and moved along. what's common to everybody is they're in stage 5. When you're in stage 5, you have the tools, you have the resources, you've rebuilt the self. So the old version of you really no longer exists. This version of you is healthy, whole, healed, confident, secure. So I can answer your question in so many different parts. Like, one part of it is you simply don't attract those people who resonate at that level who betray. That's the first thing. You're just, you are at a whole different level. You can sniff that out from a mile away. So that's one thing. But let's just say, for whatever reason, you do get betrayed again. You have the tools and the resources that, it's not nearly the same. Like, if let's just say someone is in stage 5 and then they do get betrayed again, they wouldn't consider for a moment rebuilding with that person again, or like accepting what that was again. They're at such a different level that they get that doesn't make sense for them anymore. Where, yes, we believe in the potential of human beings and all of that, but if that betrayer is unwilling to change, they have such a greater sense of self and self-esteem and all of that they're prioritizing themselves over just prioritizing their betrayer, which typically they do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So they would not be behaviorally checking up on them, and they'd be totally, at ease.
They've learned to trust again, but there's this greater discernment, where in the beginning it was just sort of blind trust. It could be that blind trust again, but it's because it's been earned and re-earned again. People ask me all the time, can trust be repaired? I say no, but can it be rebuilt? Yeah. The way I look at trust is like this. It's like a brick wall. The only way I know of a brick wall being built is brick by brick by brick. Every opportunity someone has to show that they're trustworthy, that's one brick in that brick wall. So it takes time to build, right? And then in one earth-shattering moment or series of moments, the entire thing can come tumbling down. Now, if you're willing, as the betrayed, that would be your only job. The only way I know of it going back up again is brick by brick by brick, right? So the betrayer has to be a really good bricklayer. And it goes up the same way it went up the first time, brick by brick by brick. Again, it's going to take a while. But here's what I see. I see the brick wall going up. I see the betrayer shattering the brick wall. They don't have much of an interest in rebuilding it. So the betrayed is like, fine, I'll build it. No, that's not their job. That's why they're hypervigilant. That's why the trust is never rebuilt. That's why they never feel safe. It's not their job to rebuild, but they're so afraid of outgrowing their betrayer, right? So they do the work for the betrayer. You cannot do that.
And what does doing the work for the betrayer look like?
It looks just like what I said, where you're not holding them accountable to change. We had 3 groups in the study who did not heal. And well, let me just explain what they are. The first group, this was the group, they had their story, they were sticking with it. That was just it, right? They were deeply stuck in stage 3. The second group, this was the group that was numbing, avoiding, distracting. They ran to the doctor, who put them on a mood stabilizer or anti-anxiety medication. They numbed in whatever way. It may have made the day a bit easier to get through, not without a price. They didn't heal. The third group, this was the group where the betrayer had very little consequences, sort of like the betrayer who isn't building that brick wall. And this was, whether it was out of financial fear, not wanting to break up a family, religious reasons, that was a big one. They just did whatever they could to look the other way, turn the other cheek. I saw 2 things with this group. Number 1, a further deterioration of the relationship. And 2, this group was the most physically sick. Your broken heart can't handle that. So if you're not holding that betrayer accountable for their actions, typically the betrayed pays a huge price in all of the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome.
So, knowing everything that you know with all the research you've done, would you say this is weird, would you say that if somebody betrays you, that you should be able to hold them legally accountable for your health and wellness?
I mean, I'm not going to get into any legal anything, but I am certainly not a lawyer. But I can tell you, you are in control of your health and wellness. And if you're staying with a betrayer who is unwilling to change, and and they're not being held accountable, and you're struggling with symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome, that's why. Whatever it is, and this is where we have so many of our members who work with our coaches, and me too, at a higher level, in our Transform program, to hold them accountable so that they can make a big, bold move in order to heal. Like, I'll never forget, we had a woman in our community, and she was working with me, married for over 40 years. And this was, a series of betrayals from years ago. And just struggling, but was so like done with being in this position. And so she needed the support of our community and our coaches, and working with me so that she can rent an Airbnb for a few months to gather the strength she needed to just get her thoughts together, get her ideas together. Well, it scared the living daylights out of him. He never experienced anything like that. There were no consequences to anything. All of a sudden, he's on his own. He's like, oh, wow, wait a second. You mean I have to be accountable for my actions? I have to step it up. She's really not sticking around for this anymore. Completely transformed. And so did she. She learned who she was, what she wanted, what she was ready for. And if he couldn't be a match for that, there wasn't a future for them. But when they came back together, it was a new, improved, totally different relationship. He was also in we have our rebuild program for the betrayer. So, they both were willing to do tremendous work. Then it's a whole different relationship.
Yeah, I always say that people never change unless it becomes a problem to them. So if you try to make it easy for them and concede everything that you need, then they're never going to change. What's in it for them? Why would they?
Exactly. I have a saying, I've been in business over 33 years. This applies to you name the topic in it, and it works. Ready? Hard now, easy later. Easy now, hard later. Take your pick. It's going to be one of those two. And most people do the easy now, hard later. And that's why it doesn't change. And I know people are listening or watching saying, what the heck is she talking about? This is so painful. What does she mean easy? I'm not saying easy in the symptoms that you're feeling or in the mental, emotional, huge amount of pain you're in. I'm saying easy because nothing's changing. And if nothing changes, nothing changes. So you're still stuck with the hard later. When I say hard now, easy later, I mean, if the old you did it, and now let's say someone confronts you with something, before the old you responds, you assess, do I want to continue this? Do I want to change it? Would I say it the same way? Do I want to make it, is it different? Whatever. Nothing comes out of you without going through that filter. So when I say you are deliberately and intentionally recreating yourself, I mean it.
Going back to, like, let's say you experience a betrayal and your friend group, you're telling them about it, you're like ruminating on it, whatever. And then this is what I've noticed. A lot of people, when they start ruminating on it and they don't move past it, they continue to bring it up constantly. The friend group gets exhausted and then they stop hanging out with you. And then they go, my friends were toxic.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens all the time. This is someone deeply stuck in stage 3. And remember, I said one of the benefits you get is, you get your story and you stay there, and you feel, the only thing you get. We have so many people coming into the PBT Institute with therapy trauma too. Well-meaning therapists, but they don't know the 5 stages. So someone feels heard and validated and understood, and that's it. That doesn't help you heal. And it's the same thing. If you're looking to go to your friend group to feel heard, validated, understood, that's not their job. They want to be there for you. But if you're no closer to the next stage, right, what's the point of that? So you're only like getting it off your chest and feeling better temporarily, dumping it on them. What are they supposed to do with this? Right. So yeah, your friends want to be good listeners. They want to be there for you, but it gets very frustrating when nothing is changing, and nothing is changing because you're like taking crazy glue to stage 3.
Yeah. I mean, going back to my personal experience in my life, when I was very young, I was cheated on. It was very terrible. I did not have the tools. So I would lay it on all my stupid friends, and then they would get
Mhm.
frustrated with me, and
Yeah.
then eventually they just stopped hanging out with me altogether, and
Yeah.
I had to sit there and realize it was 100% me. I was
Mm.
being annoying. I was sucking the life out of the party. So
Yeah.
I had to work on myself and being happy by myself before I could be around other people, because it just
Mhm.
wasn't fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because you're stuck in trauma, and then people just feel like, oh, I'm doomed. This is just the way it is. And then think about it. Then that's who you attract. So that becomes the life pattern. That's stage 3. But if people had even a taste of what stage 4 and 5 felt like, they would never waste a minute on stage 3. It's like this. I always use the same example. Imagine like two best friends, and they're both like 30 pounds overweight. So they're okay, but they're not feeling great. And then one friend says, I'm so done with this. I'm just done. I'm done with this, and starts going off on this whole healthy journey and eating well and exercising, whatever, and loses 30 pounds. And she's like, oh, she says to the other friend, come on, it's so great here. I'll help you. And the other one's like, this is fine. I'm okay. And she's fine, right? That she's, moving through her day, feeling okay. But the other one's like, no, no, no. I know what that feels like. And I know what this feels like. And this feels so much better. When, people stay in stage 3 because they don't know what stage 4 and stage 5 feels like. You don't have to guess. There's a roadmap. It's predictable. You just have to move through the stages.
So, what are some maybe tricks that you can
Mhm.
do to help rebuild self esteem and your self worth after a betrayal? Like,
Yeah.
is there anything you found?
Yeah, there's no trick. This is hard, deep work. And there's one mantra that I have our whole the PBT Institute community really embrace, and it's this: even though it happened to you, it's not about you. And that's so true. If you're with somebody and they're let's say a drug addict, you look at the drug as the problem, and yes, it is. But when someone chooses another, we compare it to ourselves. But it has nothing to do with us. It was that person's lack, that person's unhealed trauma, that person's, whatever it was. I am not suggesting that's an excuse at all. But what I am suggesting is it's not about you.
So, what are some things that we can ask ourselves to catch if we're numbing, avoiding, or distracting ourselves from what's going on?
Yeah, I have these 4 questions that can be really helpful, and I invite everybody to write these down. That's my way of saying write these down. Number 1, am I avoiding, numbing, distracting? If so, how? Like, call yourself on it. Do you go into the kitchen, you're not the least bit hungry and you're eating? Do I go into a room and turn the TV on because I'm desperately trying to drown out the sound of my own thoughts? Like, be honest. The second question, what am I pretending not to see? Right? Am I pretending not to see there's trouble in my relationship? Am I pretending not to see I hate my job? Am I pretending not to see that health issue that needs my attention? Be honest. The third question, what's life going to look like in 5 to 10 years if I do nothing? Like, keep doing exactly what you're doing or not doing. Play that out. 5 to 10 years. We don't want to do that, but play it out. What does that look like? How does that relationship issue look? How does your health look? How does the work issue look? Right? And then the fourth question, what can life look like in 5 to 10 years if I change now? I'm not saying change is easy, but change begins when you tell yourself the truth.
So, in my personal experiences, when I see women go through betrayal, they get really dark really quickly. They
Mhm,
kind of explode, and then they seem to move on. Maybe they have health issues later, but
mhm,
they seem okay faster. And
mhm,
then for men, I see a lot of them holding on to it
mhm.
and ruminating, draining everybody like way more than women do or can get away with. And have you noticed any differences in how the genders process betrayal?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, we have men and women within the PBT Institute, and I have not seen that. It affects both men and women deeply. What the research has shown, though, it seems, and this is just like evolutionarily, if that's the word, that the lies and deception seem to hurt the women more, where the physical betrayal hurts the men more. That's just, I remember reading that in studies. I see the deep, deep, deep raw pain in both.
And how can betrayal impact our work life?
Yeah, it impacts your health, your work, your relationships. Like in relationships, I'll see it in one of two ways. First of all, a repeat betrayal, classic sign that is unhealed. Or the other way is the big wall goes up. We keep everybody at a distance and we're like, nope, been there, done that. No one's getting near me again. We think it's coming from a place of strength. It's not. That's pure fear. Unhealed betrayal right there. Um, we see it in health where you go from doctor to coach to therapist to counselor to manage a stress related symptom, illness, condition, disease. At the root of it, it's an unhealed betrayal. Like, for example, one of those stats was 45% of everyone betrayed has a gut issue. You could go to the most well-meaning digestive experts. I'm friends with many of them, but they could put you on a great protocol. But if at the root of it is an unhealed betrayal, I mean, what supplement can you take that can heal that? None. You have to heal it, right? And then with work, maybe you deserve that raise or promotion, right? But your confidence was shattered. So you don't have the confidence to ask, or you want to be a team player, collaborative partner, but the person who you trusted the most proved untrustworthy. How do you trust that boss, that coworker, that partner? So you see, it affects everything.
Mm. And what are your thoughts on forgiveness?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not for the other person, but maybe for yourself. Does forgiveness play a part in healing?
Yeah, well, actually, the PBT Institute founded National Forgiveness Day, which is celebrated yearly on September 1st. And so clearly, I have a strong stance on forgiveness. Forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. It's really releasing the power that pain has over you. So when it comes to betrayal, if you are the betrayer, yes, there's a place for self-forgiveness. I believe that's after you've done the work. Do all you can as long as you're alive to right that wrong or pay it forward. For the betrayed, there's some self-forgiveness too. And that's because maybe they were so hard on themselves. Maybe they took it personally. Maybe they didn't treat themselves well after that. Maybe they stuck around for like more betrayal or abuse, whatever it was. So the forgiveness there is in being so hard on themselves. So forgiveness is huge. And it's so helpful physically too. We had a woman in our community in her 80s. And when we had our 21-day forgiveness journey that we used to launch National Forgiveness Day, and she was 2 weeks in, and she had a 70-year digestive issue from a family betrayal, over 70 years having a digestive issue. And 2 weeks into this forgiveness journey, healed from all of it. I mean, that's how powerful it is.
That's crazy because I know everyone, all the girls I know have been cheated on or some sort of stuff when they were kids. Everybody's got gut issues.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got like Crohn's or
Yeah.
ulcerative colitis, everything, all of this stuff. And I'm always wondering, like, maybe you're holding on to something you should be letting go.
Well, think about what the gut does. It absorbs, digests, and processes food, right? Isn't a betrayal difficult to absorb, digest, and process? I mean, you want to get rid of the gut issue, you come into the PBT Institute and you move through the 5 stages. Like the end, that's how to heal it.
So can you tell us about all your books that you have and what they're good for, what strategies you teach in them?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have 7 books, but the ones most relevant to what we're talking about would be Trust Again, which maps out the 5 stages. It has my story in there. So that's a great place to start. From Hardened to Healed is the one for people just stuck in stage 3.
Okay, wonderful. And how can everybody find you online and how can they work with you?
Yeah, so everything is at the PBT, as in post-betrayal transformation, thepbtinstitute.com. Our most popular program is our Reclaim program. It's only 3 months. And members work with if the research proved it works, it's in there. And if it proved it didn't work, it's not. So members work with our coaches every single month, every other week, actually, for private sessions. Everything is, and they specialize in everything. Divorce, reconciliation, chronic pain, self-growth, because at different stages, you need different things. We have daily live classes We have our signature program, which literally moves you through the stages, master classes with experts you can't get appointments with. They just want to serve our community. And everything is numbered according to what stage you're in. It's so simple to self-assess. So if you're in, let's say, stage 3, you go to the classes for stage 3, you see the coaches for stage 3, you do all the stage 3 stuff until you get to stage 4. And then you do all the stage 4 stuff until you get to stage 5. So you're really in there kind of on a track to move through the stages.
Is there anything else you would like to leave us with before we go today?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And I would say, it's definitely one of the most painful experiences we can have. But it's not fair to you to stop it right there. You owe it to yourself to experience how strong and worthy and capable and confident and all the things you are that you get to discover when you're in stages 4 and 5.
Well, Dr. Debi, thank you so much for being with us today. And I will put all the information in the show notes so everyone can go and check you out and hopefully work with you. Thank you again.
Thank you.